Welcome to Viseland. I am Jason Visenberg.
And I'm Michael Visenberg.
Thank you guys so much for checking out the show. Perfect. We got a great week. There's a decent amount of basketball, I'll say. Not a
Yeah.
we're kind of running into that point where it's like, oh, this is not in the bubble anymore. So
Yeah, there's not as much as there maybe was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've had, a couple games that have been like Philadelphia the other day. This had basically 8 men available. They played 7 out of the 8. So it's kind of, you're seeing some shorthanded teams, and obviously you're seeing teams that now can't get on the court because they can't find 8 players.
A lot of game postponements. A lot of people have been struck with COVID. Apparently, some people have been struck with it again, which is really bad.
Alarming. Yeah. Super alarming.
Yeah. So I know that Oregon basketball is postponed for who knows when and then you don't know when they're going to replace these games or, do anything about that, especially in terms of the NBA and college. They just pretty much have been moving forward. As we saw, like USC played UC Riverside tonight. Like, is there any reason that they would be playing UC Riverside during conference play? Usually not.
What? Yeah.
Extenuating circumstances. It was a close game. They almost lost.
By Cal Baptist too. So don't underestimate USC to play down to competition. I mean,
absolutely.
Seeming...
Evan Mobley was fantastic. I got to watch a little of Evan Mobley and Cade Cunningham tonight. Cade Cunningham playing against Kansas. He plays for Oklahoma State, if you don't know. Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley seem like they are the favorite to me to be the top 2 picks in the NBA draft. I know how well Jalen Suggs has been playing, and usually the next couple guys are the 2 G League Ignite guys and Jonathan Kuminga and Jalen Green. But yeah, I think Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley are pretty special prospects, and they were in very close games against teams of very different competition level. Evan Mobley, I thought, played fantastic. His team seems to have a lot of flaws surrounding him, and Cade Cunningham much of the same, though they had a very cool play at the end that was Oklahoma State stole the ball and he bounced it off the floor into a reverse, like 180 dunk. Not Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham, to pretty much seal the game, had a beautiful block and then saved it out of bounds to
like play. I saw that.
Go ahead transition pass. And then his teammate threw it ahead and they got an and 1 from that. So very nice. But yeah, it's the NBA draft is certainly shaping up, regardless of whether we wish we would see these guys more. We're getting kind of a good idea, at least, of players at the top of the NBA draft. And then we're getting a pretty good idea of the players who are new to the NBA this year.
Yeah, totally. And definitely, like, as we get closer to the draft, we'll obviously hear a lot more names. We'll be talking about a lot more names at that time of guys that are kind of moving around the boards. But also today was also the G League draft. So hopefully those Ignite guys have some.
Oh, yesterday.
Oh, yesterday?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
It happened. I think they're playing in a bubble.
That's what's supposed to happen. Yeah, I thought they were playing in the Disney bubble.
I don't know if they. I mean, that's a lot of money, and I think Disney is trying to open in Florida because Florida's.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was the case, but yeah.
But what we wanted to talk about today is, definitely we are a little bit into the 2020-2021 season. So now at this point, we've gotten a little bit of a flavor. Teams have played between 10, 12 games, depending. But we just wanted to really do kind of just a pulse check in on how some of the rookies are performing, what they're doing from the 2020 draft. So let's kick it off. Who's the first player we want to go talk about?
I'm just gonna get to the whole G League conundrum. It is supposed to be in the Disney bubble and it's supposed to be in February. But the first player that we're going to talk about in terms of the rookie rankings, we're just giving a kind of, these aren't really rankings that you set your clock by at this point, but we're talking about 10 players that we've found pretty fascinating as rookies so far, and who've made a nice contribution to their team, certainly have a chance to be all rookie. We've unfortunately had a few injuries so far, like Obi Toppin, Onyeka Okongwu, guys who certainly haven't played the number of games that we had hoped. And then the huge unfortunate thing of Killian Hayes having the season-ending, I believe it's a hip pointer, and that sounds absolutely horrendous. So we certainly hope that he recovers from that. I know that it's a tough road ahead there. But the first player that we are going to talk about is LaMelo Ball. And he was considered, I think, the consensus number one player amongst draft Twitter. Certainly considered a possibility for number one, even a possibility for number two to the Warriors. The top three looked like it was going to be either one of Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, or LaMelo Ball. They ended up being the top three picks. And so far, LaMelo has, I would say, lived up to expectations and is a very exciting player. And he is averaging 12.4 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, which for a guard is absolutely insane. Granted, he's 6'7", but he still weighs like, I think they list him at 181 pounds, and 6 assists per game, which, you know, that was what he was very well known for, his passing. But he was just always known as a guy who just had tremendous basketball instincts. And I think we saw that very early on in Australia. We saw that throughout his career as a prospect. And he has just been a really exciting piece for a team that already has a couple starting guards. Not to mention he's doing this in only 25.3 minutes per game.
He hasn't started a game yet either.
So he backs up Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham. But the fact is that he has the size to play with either one of them. And at least is showing like some decent sides of being able to do a little off ball as well. Like obviously LaMelo was always a player where you wanted the ball in his hands because he is a wizard as a passer. Right now, he's also averaging 1.6 steals per game. But yeah, he has a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. The defense is still a pretty mixed bag, but it's good to see him at least creating events, and it doesn't seem like he's a complete flop out there defensively. It just seems like he's kind of living up to his billing as being this really exciting piece for a Charlotte team that added Gordon Hayward, who has looked like an absolute all-star like over the past few games, and looks like he may be back to his old all-star self. If Charlotte keeps it up. But yeah, they've been a team so far. Like I think they have a winning record at this point. Yeah, they're 6-5. And Gordon Hayward's looked really good. Devontae Graham's had a pretty up and down year. Terry Rozier's looked good, but LaMelo has been a really valuable piece for them and looks like one of the favorites to be rookie of the year. Leading rookies in assists, one of the leading rookie rebounders.
And he had a triple double the other day. So he's
indeed, youngest player ever to
the statue.
Youngest player ever to have a triple double. And who was the youngest player before LaMelo to have a triple double, Jason?
I'm gonna go with Magic.
You are incorrect, sir. It was Lonzo Ball.
Lonzo, oh geez.
He broke his brother's record. Yeah.
Well, I was like shocked that like it wasn't like Magic or like LeBron. Magic, a little.
Well, Magic was a little bit older than Lonzo when he came into the league, and I guess LeBron. It took him a while. LeBron was always the guy who would have like 25, like 8 and 8, like Well, LeBron didn't necessarily always like stack up like the exact amounts needed for triple doubles, whereas Lonzo, I guess, must have gotten one pretty early, and very young, obviously entering the league. So yeah, it was pretty cool that he broke his brother's record. He almost got a triple double when they played the Pelicans the night before with Lonzo Ball, and LaMelo outplayed Lonzo. He looks like he's. I think what people knew about LaMelo in the advantage that he had over like Lonzo is a much better ball handler. So he has that ability to control the ball and to, I guess, create that I think you would take over Lonzo. Lonzo was also a tremendous passer, and like particularly in transition, and he's kind of become a linking guy as opposed to a star. But LaMelo, I think with his handle and that ability, certainly has a much higher ceiling, and that was kind of the description of him coming into the league, and so far he has lived up to that. Still not necessarily shooting as well as you would hope, but better than I think what might have been expected. Obviously, very early in the year too. He has not been great around the basket, and kind of just he's not like the most kind of bursty athlete or anything like that. Like, he's a good athlete, but yeah, he's not necessarily like killing you with his vertical explosion or anything along those lines. So he's actually kind of struggled when trying to create like his own offense in transition. And, still like there are some shot selection issues at times, but the fact that he is shooting 35% from three and 72% from the line, like those are both numbers that I think you're very happy with, considering the early going. Obviously, a lot more season left and things can happen, but yeah, it just seems like when people looked at his Australian efficiency, he didn't have a ton of games there, not like a huge sample size, and obviously was doing well in terms of like raw numbers, but you just were hoping that he would shoot a little bit better than he had in the past, like over a huge sample size of like, the Junior Baller Association and stuff like that. So yeah, he's been good, and I think he is certainly one of the favorites for Rookie of the Year, and is like that player that Charlotte, I think, is very happy to have as like a building piece for their team.
Oh, totally. Because you look at Golden State and you're like, this would have played well this year to have someone else kind of co running a little point and then also running a little off ball, like with Steph. Yeah, but yeah, it's hey, say what you will about LeVar, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah,
getting them to the league. But yeah, like right now it does look like there might be a little bit more. Obviously, he has more potential than Lonzo, because Lonzo's already kind of shown who he plays as. But yeah, I think like shooting and kind of that ability to really take it in. I mean, those are probably things that he didn't deal with before coming to the NBA, because he's kind of played at a lot of varying levels of competition, from high school to Lithuania, back to kind of high school to Australia. I think this is like, just definitely a different game as far as that is concerned. But I think he's definitely going to move a lot of jerseys as well in Charlotte. Super, super popular player. But yeah, I think the triple-double thing is kind of, something to keep an eye on. Like, if this can become kind of a consistent thing that he's contributing to your team.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
he's I think always was somebody that we expected to stuff the stat sheet at the very least. And, he's a player that you could have a reason to leave on the court, even if he is having a cold shooting night, just because he can grab rebounds and he's a tremendous passer and just so damn creative too. And like some of that transition passing has been a lot of fun to see. But yeah, he's been just I think he's been as advertised. You have to be really happy with how he's played so far in the early going for Charlotte.
No, most definitely. So moving on, we got somebody that has come in and really gotten a lot of buzz, also kind of competing in that, people talk Rookie of the Year. We're talking Tyreese Halliburton, Sacramento.
Yeah.
He's definitely been someone who's been pretty strong in that backcourt. I know De'Aaron Fox missed a couple games. That let him kind of slip in and get, more just straight point guard time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you feeling on, has he kind of met that expectation? Obviously, I think, kind of exceeding it, really.
Yeah, oh, for sure. He's exceeded it. And I know that obviously when he went 12th, it was a surprise. Like I guess, whereas draft Twitter was very, very high on LaMelo Ball, they weren't as high on Haliburton. He was pretty polarizing. Like there were a lot of different takes on it, but I think people were really concerned about his it was kind of silly that people were concerned about his like shooting.
I know
They were more concerned about his pull-up shooting. Yeah.
Yeah, the shooting motion change got people alarmed, but that turned out to be a non-issue because that was just kind of a little bit overblown.
What was overblown?
When they said he had the workouts where it's like his shot was a little bit different, and there's a lot.
No,
of...
that was Devin Vassell. Oh, but yeah, I don't think that was as much Haliburton. But yeah, I think people were just kind of always worried because he doesn't have a ton of bursts. He's a good athlete, but he like rarely ever got to the basket. And he just he was always a good kind of catch and shoot player, but didn't necessarily like do a ton in creating his own offense or from the pull-up. Like his pull-up game didn't look aesthetically pleasing, I guess, to the eye. And he does have kind of like a lower release and all of that, but he has shot really well. Yeah, he's shot well. He's just been like that really efficient offensive player. He went a lot lower than I think he was predicted in most mock drafts. And I know that like in the mainstream, they kind of had him at that top half of the lottery. And yeah, like it was surprising to see him go 12th. I think people made a little too much about him being like a point guard and like, you know, oh, he's going to a team whose best player is a point guard and just signed like a huge extension. He was always this like really good linking player and had a little bit of size.
6'5" with long arms. I mean, yeah, like you could pair him back over, you know, De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, he's actually not like crazy long, but still like long enough. Yeah. And so I think certainly has like the good shooting guard size. The strength, I think, was always something that people worried about as well. And that was, you know, with him getting to the paint and doing that. But so far, so good. Still hasn't gotten to the line a ton. He's played 9 games and gotten to the line 11 times. So it doesn't happen very often, but he's shooting really, really well. And he's just really confident in his decision making also. And like never making any turnovers. And like he has a 5.3 to 1 assist.
Yeah, it's
crazy
for a rookie. Yeah.
It will. Yeah. In college, like he had that like absurd, like Monte Morris, like assist to turnover ratio also, where he just rarely ever made mistakes and made great passes. So he was always seen as like this really good linking guy, but yeah, just doesn't do like a ton off the bounce and isn't necessarily going to be like a big creator. But in his role right now with Sacramento, he's just incredibly efficient. And he doesn't have like the kind of like mind-boggling like LaMelo all-around numbers at this point, but just passing really well, never making mistakes, shooting absurdly well. And like, you know, the fact that he's shooting 50% from 3 right now, he's making 3 that's per 36 minutes, 2.4. Sorry, it wasn't that much of a difference because he's playing 28.6 minutes per game. But yeah, he's averaging 12.1 points per game, 1.3 steals, 5.3 assists, 2.7 rebounds. And yeah, like the fact that he's shooting 50% from 3 is unsustainable and probably not something that's going to keep up. But he shot really well in college. Like his 2 years at Iowa State, he was at 42.6% from 3. And it may not be like the most beautiful looking shot, but he was always very effective and it seemed to be very comfortable shooting. And I just wondered, like, what is his usage right now? Yeah. Still like not very high usage. That was, I think, was always the other concern is like, if he's going to be your kind of like main option or anything like that. But at the very least, he's been like an excellent linking player and contributor as a guard for Sacramento so far. And yeah, he's like, has to be one of the favorites for Rookie of the Year, just because he's playing his role absurdly well. He's actually helping Sacramento win games, and for a while was like scoring like a staggering amount of points in like the fourth quarter also. Like, yeah, he's kind of like their closer at this point, which is pretty cool.
And showed up better than expected. I mean, they're sitting at 5 and 6 right now, but it's like, the expectations usually aren't very high.
Yeah. And they've been like just outside of the playoffs the last couple of years too. But yeah, he has them, I think, looking like it's a very positive direction, considering the fact that like Marvin Bagley's been hurt the last little while, and they're still looking for kind of pieces to build around. And he looks like a good one. Like considering he was a 12th pick in the draft, he has been like, this is just fantastic. If you're getting this value like 3 or 4 years into the league at the 12th pick, like this is amazing.
Oh no, yeah,
rookie.
that's big. Like stealish status of just.
Yeah.
I think wasn't there that period where it was like the number 10? What was it like? Caron Butler and Paul Pierce were both like 9 or 10, and that was like
They were both 10. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like the pick. That's like you get picked 10th. It's like guy's gonna blow up. So hey, maybe he starts at for 12th pick, and yeah, it's like maybe Sacramento does make that playoff leap this year. Well,
I wouldn't go that far, but
because I know Denver's like obviously totally not meeting expectation right now.
Yeah.
Especially based on how they ended last year. But yeah, no, I definitely think it's been a pleasant surprise, and just hopefully bringing some potential to that franchise there.
Yes, absolutely.
Moving on, we got our number 1 pick in the draft. Obviously a lot of debate. As again, like Anthony Edwards, Melo, Wiseman could have gone, either way for the 3 of them. We ran a poll. Everyone, I think we had LaMelo was number 1. Anthony Edwards, it was like pretty close, and then James Wiseman got like 0 votes. Like not even his family was voting for him in that one. But we're talking Anthony Edwards. He's definitely someone who likes to compete. I don't know if you ever saw that interview where he basically tells the person from the Timberwolves, like, I will play any sport and beat you at it.
Yeah.
Like he play hockey and he's like, I will figure it out.
I think he likes to joke around.
Yeah.
That is the other thing. Like he's just an incredibly fun interview. Like, yeah. He has like kind of like that deadpan sense of humor. And yeah, so that's been really cool. I want to read something because this went around right before the draft. And P3, which is into sports science, like athleticism, they're a training market that they train these high level athletes. So they have a ton of data. And what they had for Anthony Edwards is he was in acceleration force, he was 99th percentile. In deceleration force, he was 98th percentile. In lateral acceleration, he was 98th percentile. He creates more raw acceleration force than anyone we've assessed at his position. And he is the biggest athlete in our hyper-athletic guard cluster. So there is certainly, I feel like, quite a bit of upside. Now, when it comes to actually playing basketball, like that's the big thing.
Being in good shape is great.
It's not even just being in good shape; it's being like an amazing athlete.
He's a tank. I mean, when you see him.
Well, but also like just like that's quickness. That's not even being a tank. That's just being like quick and like just having that ridiculous ability. So yeah, and like being strong is even beyond like all those figures that I just quoted. But yeah, so he's leading rookies in scoring right now, but he's not doing so very efficiently. And he still has a lot of the same issues I think you saw when he was at Georgia with the shot selection and just kind of like wondering what the hell he's doing at times. He on both ends of the floor. Yeah, he still is very much figuring it out. And obviously Minnesota hasn't been like, the best setting thus far. And he's playing off the bench as well. But yeah, you're still kind of trying to get him to figure out the basketball aspects and like just how good he's going to be as a defender, how good he's going to be as a decision maker, whether the 3-point shot is actually dropping. And you can see that like there are times he gets hot and there are times he looks really good. And then there are also times where he forces long twos and yeah, he's not shooting a good true shooting percentage right now. He hasn't been a very efficient player to this point.
And he's not afraid to
Still
take,
is able
he's
to
not
score.
afraid to take them either. He's taking them like
Definitely not.
But yeah, it's like I think obviously building that out consistently is so key. You know, if you can't, like, to me, like the way the NBA is right now is like if you're not shooting the three very well, you better be doing something else like the best in the league. Like you better be the best like shot blocker, the best, you know, something else. Because especially for a two guard, I kind of want to see a little bit better shooting. I mean, turnovers, assist to turnover is basically even right now.
Mhm.
So, you know, those like that's definitely you know, an area for concern. But obviously, you know, rookie year, Minnesota's kind of probably going to be back to that, you know, portion of the lottery if they still have do they still have their pick this year?
They unfortunately, Jason,
Yeah.
they traded their pick to Golden State. It is top 3 protected for 2021. So if they get you know, obviously I think they'd love to have Jalen Suggs, the hometown guy. Cade Cunningham to me would be the best possible option for them. And then Evan Mobley certainly wouldn't hurt and would be, I think, very fun next to Karl Anthony Towns. But yeah, I think they would love to have that like primary initiator, which Ant clearly wasn't that guy. And I don't think that was going to be the expectation with him. He hasn't gotten very many isolation opportunities yet, but has done well in those situations on a very small sample size at this point. But he's a guy that can create his own shot. That's always been something that, you know, he's been well known to do. I think the big thing with him and where he could really excel is in off-ball situations. So like as a cutter, as you know, you're hoping like a catch and shoot kind of player as well. So yeah, those are just a couple situations where I think you're hoping that he gets put in the right place. But so far, his jumpers off of the dribble, he has been pretty disastrous. He's been a much better catch and shoot player thus far. But yeah, he's taking a lot of tough pull-up jump shots, and it's not working so far. It hasn't been the best option for him at this point. So yeah, he still kind of needs to figure out what his best role is. And then I think we knew there were going to be like possible logistical issues with this team and, you know, having so many kind of shoot first guys. So yeah, he's struggled, but there have been flashes. And the big thing with Anthony Edwards is he has all of this athletic potential and all of this athletic ability, and he's still extraordinarily young. But you just wish there was this, I guess, better basketball acumen that another player who's extraordinarily young, LaMelo Ball, has been showing so far. That Anthony Edwards seems to kind of still be reaching.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the things you mentioned were very awareness based. Or I think of LaMelo as that person, but I think, you know, a lot of Anthony Edwards' positioning was kind of based on, you know, raw athletic ability. Hopefully, you know, some of those things can get figured out on the awareness end. Whereas I think which is a tough risk to take. I think like LaMelo, you hopefully knew what you were kind of getting in. You know, the bar was set super high because he does, you know, as much as he didn't play in the NBA before, he does know what it's like to play in a professional setting as far as awareness and, you know, him probably not, you know, getting the ball all the time. You know, definitely as a young kid playing professionally. But I think, yeah, it'll be interesting for Edwards just again to see if he's just another one of those first picks that just kind of gets to a certain okay level, but never gets to that next tier up. And I think, I mean, we kind of expected that with this 2020 draft because it wasn't super, super strong.
Yeah.
But, you know, you just want to see, you know, like you want to see something all-star. And I think LaMelo's probably the only one.
LaMelo's looking like, that looks like LaMelo early on. And that's what a lot of people were kind of leaning towards. And Minnesota had no perfect choice. And I think LaMelo would certainly could have struggled in a similar situation with Minnesota as well.
Yeah, well, you have LaMelo and D'Angelo.
Completely sure there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he looks at least like he is one of the, like where we said earlier, where if he's missing shots, you can still have him on the floor. Anthony Edwards, if he's missing shots, it's really tough to have him on the floor. Like that I think that's the big difference between the two at this point.
Well, especially at the end of the game where you need, you need those shots, you need those moments, you need those guys, and it's like, yeah, the consistency is not yet there. But someone who, LaMelo and Anthony Edwards haven't started games yet, which again, like not the end of the world, make or break. But we're talking next part we're talking about is James Wiseman, who's been the starting center on the former world champion Golden State Warriors, but obviously very different Golden State Warriors. Yeah, but he gets to run with Steph.
Does indeed.
Out there, how are you feeling about as far as like he's fit into that obviously like different look Golden State team of basically Steph and a bunch of other people?
Yeah, it's been an adjustment, and he's another guy who has these flashes, but still isn't doing it at the efficiency level you would want from your center. Yeah, like even from his first game when the Warriors were getting killed, he had these like tremendous flashes of the shooting that you saw. Like he started off shooting really, really well. I think he doesn't have a huge sample size there, and obviously like a dip, but he's still at 40% from three going into this episode. Only shooting 60% from the line though. And then I think his hands have been a concern. Like, he doesn't always get clean catches. He fumbles rebounds at times. He fumbles passes. Those are things that I think usually they're hard to improve. Like they're not necessarily like hand-eye coordination. Those things are difficult to get better at. But he's at least shown some ability to step out and shoot to an extent. The passing was never one of his bigger strengths.
Well, that's a decision making again, like with turnovers. Like right now he's at 0.3 assists, 1.5 turnovers. Like it's not the direction you want to lead.
You knew he wasn't going to be a tremendous passer, even having like he needs to figure out where guys are on the floor, and I think like that processing was never a big strength for him. But then in terms of he still takes those ridiculous like 20-foot jump shots, and he does that far too often for your liking. He'll make a couple occasionally, but you would rather him not take them. And yeah, like that seems to be kind of counterintuitive for a player with his absurd physical gifts. And he, like, I don't think he's developed a consistent way to score yet, which is something that you're hoping from him. He's been like okay in post-ups, but that's not going to be like what you get the ball to James Wiseman for. And yeah, so you'd like to see him be more of that rim running threat and more of that lob threat. And that was always something that was a little difficult for him too, with his I guess struggles catching the basketball. But still he's putting up rebounds. He's a pretty good ball handler. Like that's the other thing. Like he has some coordination and some ability to put the ball on the floor and make these really nice moves. So yeah, like he does a few things where you're like, okay, there's like, I get it with him. But yeah, in terms of defense also, like he's really slow to react and doesn't have like quick hips, has never been seen as like this switchable guy, especially like in terms of the pick and roll. So yeah, he's a guy who I think Draymond Green put it best in that he like still has no fucking idea what he's doing, but he like for the fact that like with that being a fact, the Warriors are still being competitive, and he hasn't been like terrible. And you still see some really positive flashes with him. So yeah, like obviously there have been a few players taken behind him who, like, like you were saying earlier with LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
I thought LaMelo to Golden State would have been a fascinating.
From like an NBA 2K perspective, that sounds like awesome. Yeah, like it sounds awesome. But obviously, they saw something in Wiseman.
Wouldn't have been perfect, but it sounded like a kind of interesting fit. And yeah, but James Wiseman, he gave them a different look, and I don't think you can be like completely disappointed in James Wiseman as a prospect. You can be disappointed maybe that you didn't take like a different prospect, but I think he still, like, there's still some upside there where like you can't be too down on having James Wiseman on your team. I feel like I feel like there still is a lot of good there, and like the athleticism and the insane size and like those little flashes of like rim protection and rebounding, it works at times. Like there are a few plays where you're like, what is he doing? And then he'll like kind of show some kind of processing there and kind of making up for it in certain areas also. So yeah, I think you're seeing some progress, and like for this being James Wiseman after not playing basketball for a year, I'm pretty happy with it.
And 19 years old as well. So again, still
Young player.
I guess like where would you see him like in this situation? It's probably not going to be this year, like, but Golden State in the playoffs, like, do you see?
I see him not playing very much.
Because that's the kind of thing. Like, I feel like it's like one of those like regular season. It's like he starts and then in the playoffs, unless it's a team that really like calls for that matchup need of having another big body out there, it's like I definitely probably don't see him on the court at the end of a lot of.
Oh no, and he hasn't been like closing out games a ton for them either. He's only playing 20 minutes per game, and so yeah, like his per 36 minute number is still pretty good. He obviously gets into foul trouble, so I think that's another reason why he likely doesn't play the 36 minutes. But I think once they get to the playoffs, he might play even less than he does now. It might just be a better idea to go small. But I think after the Warriors like started off the season the way they did, they've kind of figured things out. Steph is playing at like his MVP level basically, and they are getting better contributions from players like Andrew Wiggins, who's really improved his defense and came in this season quite a bit stronger and shooting well from long range. And then Kelly Oubre didn't continue shooting like 0% from outside of the paint. So yeah. You were hoping that you would get a little bit more of a contribution from your two wings. Getting Draymond Green back, I think, just helps in so many ways. And like he wasn't a cure-all, but they've at least been a lot more competitive. They were leading Indiana to the point where we started recording. But yeah, they look like a playoff team to me. And Wiseman has not been bad. Like you could certainly see worse from a player. And
rookie center, for sure.
Yeah,
like a rookie. Like
he hasn't been good, but he hasn't been like dreadful. Like, don't ever put this guy on the court level bad. Like that. I think some like draft Twitter on the whole was pretty low on James Wiseman, and I think they could be right in the long run. Who knows? But he hasn't been as bad as I think people believed he was going to be. But yeah, he has not been great either, and he wouldn't be my favorite for rookie of the year.
Well, no, totally. Like, I mean, again, I don't think he's going to have the minutes played to really compete. Like, I think LaMelo is obviously going to see more times as the season goes on, as are a lot of those guys. But yeah, I think like hopefully for him, he can at least get into the playoffs this year and see what that experience is like. Because I think next year, once they get Clay back in the mix, like they're gonna hopefully make another deep playoff push, because you kind of wonder like how much is left for that Golden State 3 core of, Steph, Clay, Draymond. But, I think bringing in as center is, it was a good move for Golden State, but then it's tough because on the other hand, they do like to play small sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it was a interesting, but yeah, like hopefully he can, make some less mistakes and then kind of earn himself into their playoff rotation next year. I think that would be a reasonable goal for him to try to obtain. But coming in next, we got one of the draft day surprises on the pick. I mean, a lot of people, obviously everyone had him in that lottery zone, but we're talking Patrick Williams. Bulls got him with the 4th pick.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a last minute buzz of him really like flying up on some mocks and some boards.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about what he's bringing so far to Chicago? Because that's still kind of a team that's, figuring some things out.
Yeah, so he did not start a single game at Florida State, and he started every single game for Chicago so far. And I don't think it was as much of a surprise. Like it was somewhat of a surprise that he went 4, but the rumor was that he was going to go somewhere from 4 to 7. He was somebody that just kept raising up throughout the draft process, mainly for the fact that he is like, I guess he's kind of this tweener forward, but he can play either forward position really well, and you could see him defending either forward position really well. And I think the thing that teams were quite high on with him is he didn't necessarily like shoot super well from long range in college. Like he shot 32% at Florida State, but he had good shooting indicators and just like a pleasing like shot setup, and he and good size for the forward position too. So the point where I think ultimately, like where I saw him playing, like I thought he would be a great 4. And he's mainly played the small forward for Chicago so far, or played next to Otto Porter, where they're basically kind of like interchangeable. And I think they've been pretty competitive, but he's been pretty impressive on both ends and shown some good things. Was always a really good weak side rim protector also, and showed good instincts on that end of the floor. And then, the shooting has been, I guess, a even more pleasant surprise than you would think. Like it's not something that looks sustainable. Like you just don't really expect him to shoot 46% from 3 for the rest of the year, but it's he's off to a really good start there, and he's just looked really comfortable and really confident on some of those like pull-up shots and catching and shooting. So yeah, it's a really positive start there. Still not like crazy efficient. It isn't like putting up big assist numbers. Granted, he's playing with 2 guards who rarely ever pass the ball in Zach LaVine and Kobe White. But yeah, he's
getting 3.5 rebounds a game too, though, because he's playing with the 2 guys that don't like to pass the ball but don't mind shooting it.
No, and yeah, like 3.5 rebounds is I think something that you would like to maybe see a little bit more, and maybe that's just like physicality at this point or where he's playing on the floor. But yeah, he I think there are certainly a lot of positives there, and he looks like a real keeper for Chicago. Yeah, I think they just kind of have to figure out what they're going to do as far as like their big man rotation situation and all that stuff. Lauri Markkanen's been hurt, but yeah, they I think he hasn't necessarily like set the world on fire, but he's I think somebody that you see is like a potential big positive for Chicago moving forward, and you see the vision of him being this like really valuable combo forward.
Yeah, to go with Zach LaVine, Kobe White, kind of like pair that as your core. I think Lauri Markkanen gives you a good stretch 4 in theory.
I don't think you want that as your core. That's my big.
I think that's what they have. So
that's what they have. I think you would like to find like a star player for them to kind of go with, and I don't think that's Zach LaVine. They're not paying Zach LaVine like he's a star player either, and so they have that. And Zach is a really good player, but you would like to see Zach play next to somebody who I think is more of an initiator. Like that's why you would love to see like a Cade Cunningham there as like a big initiator. And yeah, you still, I think you would like Kobe and Zach. Like we were talking about Kobe like last week. You would like to see him next to somebody who can be more of an initiator of the offense. And that's still what they need. And I think Patrick Williams would benefit from that heavily as well.
So we'll see. I mean, obviously, trajectory could point to another lottery appearance for the Chicago Bulls. So definitely not something that's out of the question, even though they did give it to the Blazers, but it happens to everybody. Coming in next, we're talking Deni Avdija starting for the Wizards. What are your thoughts so far? Because I know following him, it's a little. I know he had 20 the other night, which was great, but he had 1 point the night before. So put those together, that's 10-ish points a game. But obviously, again, still in that position, younger. He's 20 years old. This is his first NBA year. But I guess what are your thoughts so far with him on the Wizards? Because especially right now, Bradley Beal is scoring leading league in scoring right now, scoring like a madman. You'd kind of love for him to at least be rewarded for that with the playoffs, but sometimes life doesn't work out that way. But what are your thoughts on Deni? Getting so far, he started the games for the Wizards at the 3.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on? Because again, they have kind of competition in that zone with like Rui Hachimura, Troy Brown.
Yeah, I think they've been mainly playing Rui at the 4. But yeah, they Deni is playing like a really like a huge complementary role, I would say at this point. And the Wizards they had a great win against the Suns the other night too. But I think he's been good in that role. Like another guy who's just really good in that role. He has an almost 4-to-1, I guess, let's say 3.5-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Really low usage at this point. Like, so yeah, hasn't had like a ton of offensive possessions, and he is averaging 7 points per game. He has only had 2 double-figure scoring games in his young NBA career in these 11 games. But yeah, I think you have to be happy with his passing as like, that kind of, he's not like a primary initiator or anything like that, but somebody who you're happy to have the ball in his hands, making some good passes, getting some people involved. I think he's done a pretty good job on defense as well. And he was somebody that you always really liked his awareness and his aggression on that end of the floor, and then gets rebounds considering, the amount of minutes that he plays. So yeah, I think you're pretty happy with Deni so far. And then the shooting, that's the other thing with Deni. He is shooting. He's only taken 8 free throws thus far, but he's taken 35 3-pointers and he's made 16. So yeah, that's again not something that you would really think would be sustainable, but it's been an added bonus to having him play big minutes for you. And I think it was something that you were hoping. He didn't shoot exceedingly well from the 3-point line in Israel and in EuroLeague, but he but always was somebody who shot pretty well, like off of the catch, and you just kind of figured you weren't completely out on him as a shooter. The free throw shooting, I think, was also a concern because he was around like a low 50% free throw shooter also.
Which is hard. Again, it's hard to get on the court at the end of the game if you can't be counted on as a consistent free throw shooter.
Yeah. But yeah, it's he's playing a nice role. I think the Wizards were really happy to have him slip to the 9th pick. They're looking for wings. They're looking for complementary pieces, and Deni could still be a good one. So yeah, I think he's like you're talking about with like consistency in terms of being a scorer, and he's not like this crazy initiator prospect that I think some people felt like he was, but most kind of knew that he would just be this good linking player who would make good decisions, hopefully would shoot, and yeah, hopefully just a smart player to have on the court who can hold his own on the defensive end as well. So yeah, that's what you're seeing from Deni early on.
Yeah, I think with Russell Westbrook, it'd probably be like, yeah, being a reliable catch and shoot player would be pretty key. But again, Washington off to a bit of a struggling start for the year. But I mean, again, still very early. Anything can happen. Coming out next is we're going to talk Tyrese Maxie from Kentucky, and this is we talked earlier in the show about COVID has caused some interesting game postponements and things like that. Well, this was Tyrese Maxie is someone that benefited from the small rotation that occurred the other day. Philadelphia was left with an 8-man rotation, only 7 of which they played. So Tyrese Maxie was definitely a big benefactor of that. Give me 1 second. Looks like had a little bit of a technical mishap occur. Michael's power went out because he was spitting so much hot fire that Portland General Electric had to turn off the lights. But just, recapping, I was just talking about Tyreese Maxie, someone that, due to these COVID circumstances, has had a couple great games. I mean, against Denver the other day, had 44 minutes, 39 points, 6 assists. The other night against Miami, 16 points, 8 assists. So he's someone who's really getting to see the floor a lot. But what we're going to do is we're going to, have this episode, with those players that we've talked about. And then next week, we're going to come at you with a part 2. So, you're going to get a 2-part of this little series here of, just pulse checking in on how the rookies are doing and how they're handling. So I appreciate you guys so much for coming in, sticking it out, and checking out the show. If you like us as a team, you could always send us an email at ViselandPod. We love getting any feedback. So ViselandPod@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at Viseland. Subscribe on YouTube. Listen to us anywhere you can find podcasts. If you want to follow me, I'm on all social media at Visenberg. If you want to follow Michael, it's at NBA Draft Mikey V on Twitter. But we appreciate you guys checking out every episode, and we can't wait to come back next week with a part 2, because as promised, we do release every week, and even a power outage cannot slow us down. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to check us out, and we'll hope to see you next week.